hiring used to be done on the basis of, the roles were defined and job descriptions were ready, and we were trying to, find the people who were best fitted to those roles. In today's times, roles are changing constantly, and even the organization doesn't know what is expected from the employees who is going to be hired, right? So how do we cope up with this challenge of, where the people who are going to be a part of the organization, on CV they all look alike, right? The CVs are so similar, but how do you differentiate the characteristics or the value which is the for the roles which don't exist yet, or for the challenges which have not yet appeared, right? So how the hiring basically actually looks anymore. So maybe you can share one quality which now you look for among people that you hire, which you never thought was really important 5 years ago, right? So maybe you can.
Sure. So I'll go first. So I think three parts of your question. So one is in terms of how do you define what you're looking for. One of the things that we are seeing is that competencies are getting democratized. So everybody has everything in today's day and age and world, thanks to being able to put the prompt right. So from that perspective, what we look at is saying, how do we envision this role 6 months out? And that's as true today as it ever was in our lifetimes, in terms of saying that what will this role actually look like 6 months later. Second thing we look for is, earlier we used to look for pedigree when we are looking and meeting people and saying what's your pedigree and what background and XLRI and IIMs and ABC, etc. Now we look at the ability to be able to pivot in terms of how are you going to be able to find in today's challenging times, how are you kind of going to be able to figure out ways of being able to find better and newer solutions as things change and evolve. We're in shifting sands. And from an interview assessment perspective or a competency assessment perspective, I think there's always the left brain, right brain balance that we look for. We look for a good cultural fitment. We look for, apart from the physical interview and meeting people and getting to know their background and their journey and what kind of lifespans that they've had, we also look at, earlier we used to look for a lot of EQ and IQ, and now we also look at the learning quotient in terms of we have created and defined tests which we give employees to be able to suss out. It's a bit like the SATs, where there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a thought pattern in terms of how your mind thinks. And those are ways which we are trying to balance. We don't have a perfect answer as yet. I don't think we've reached that stage, but I think we are far better than what we were about a year behind.
I feel like skills are something that can be taught, but attitude is something you can't teach. So when I interview someone, I always check for whether they have the right attitude towards work. What are they really looking for? What are they chasing? Is it learning? Is it money? Is it success? What is it that they really want? And will they get that in the job that they will do? And if they're passionate about learning, then they will tackle everything in that way. So what I look for is how are they approaching a problem. So if supposing we've given a question, for example, a problem solving question, it's not about whether they got the right answer, but how they arrived at it or what is the path they took. How were they thinking about it? Sometimes there are times when I, for certain roles, I give a basic Excel test. And I tell them that feel free to ask me if you need help, because just imagine I'm your manager and you're stuck and you need help. You can ask me. And I try and see where are they asking, what are the questions, will they ask or do they hesitate, those kind of things. It's not about whether they got the answers right, but also their attitude, the way they're approaching everything, their communication. So what comes out in the interview for me, what's more important is these non-verbal, interpersonal things that are also very important, because technical skills are evolving constantly. One day you need Excel, next day you need something else, then you need ChatGPT and Claude. So it's just constantly evolving. So while you need the basics, right, of course, that we see via CVs, of course, but then what comes out in the interview, and it's important to me, is this.
So for the right hiring, a lot of diligence has to be done beforehand. So what we do, we look for AAA, the trail of A's. What is the first A? That is the agility. That is, are they learning agile, emotional maturity, handling ambiguity. Now these are the behavioral characteristics. Either you have it, or it's very difficult to develop it actually. Right? It can be developed, but on the other hand, people have it or don't have it. Right? That is the first one, the agility. And second one is the ability, which is a combination of the competencies that you bring to the table, that is business acumen, vision and strategy, collaborating, innovation, communication, influencing. This is something which can be developed actually. We look forward to that ability, which is which is at the premium. Third is the aspiration. What is the ambition levels of the person? You may have the agility, you may have the ability, but I'm chilled out. It's fine, but you need people who are ambitious actually, right? I'll also add the values and the purpose, the character part of it also. That's so much needed. Given the kind of Bani and VUCA that we handle, people may take shortcuts. So there are no shortcuts in the life and in the when you're having a long stint. We also look forward to the culture fit, as our friend was talking about. That is, we call it alert behaviors. That is, people who demonstrate accountability, learning fast, failing fast, empowerment, responsiveness, and winning with teams. That's a culture fit that we have articulated. Why diligence? Because it's not easy to look for it. You may know all this, but other than how to elicit the responses around it. So it is how do you train the business managers into that? And it's not a one-time journey. It's a difficult skill. Interviewing skills is difficult. How do you train them? How do you give them the cohort that they can keep practicing and sharing with each other and growing in that art of interviewing? That don't ask only the technical and functional questions, but look forward to, as you rightly said, what roles, how the roles will evolve. We just hire for the potential. We just hire for the culture fit, right? And the roles they will take up. Anyway, the careers are not being defined by the organizations. People take different kind of routes to build their careers actually. And that will be important even when they're interviewing people internally for the different roles. So that a lot of diligence is needed in that part.
Yeah, I think earlier it was more around what experience does he carry, right? Does a candidate carry? Is it in line with the role we are trying to hire, etc., which has now changed quite a bit, right? So it's more around obviously skills, right? Both hard and soft skills that the person carries. One big change that we've done is it is also important for us to see whether that person sees the organization as a fit. So now what we do as a process is, even at junior levels, we get them enough time to come and see the team and the environment, right, where they're going to be, right, so that they are also very clear that this is the kind of environment they want to work with, right. Otherwise, we used to have a lot of mismatches post the person has joined. So that's an important learning that has changed. Problem solving overall has become very critical now, right? So earlier also we used to have a lot of case study kind of stuff and an exercise that we used to give in the interview. What has changed now is, even with a lot of assistance, right, using Gen AI or whatever, is the person still able to approach the problem differently, right? So that's another thing. So we allow them to search. Right, which was not the case earlier. Earlier, we used to call them to a room, there was a PC, we used to give them and say, boss, this is where you have to work, right? Now we allow them to work out of their device, the environment they want to do, and still see what is the approach he's taking towards the problem. I think these are the 2-3 changes we've done.
So slightly different views for discussion point of view. The way we are seeing is that people are very particular today of what they want. I think, and it is for the management to groom them, and we think that they should be more grinded across various roles and functions. But the shift that I'm seeing over the years is that people are now very particular of what they want, and they have specialized themselves. They have dealt with those skills. They have done trainings, and of course, with a lot of interface with the industry now, they know what the industry is offering. Assuming that we are offering what they are asking for. In that sense, then you start looking for the softer side. So of course the skill assessment, so we call this as the AND principle. You need to have everything. Nothing is left out actually. So skills is matching to the requirement the individual is working for. So that is already given. You do assessments, we have moved away from the competency frameworks and focus on the skills in terms of what is required in the role and does the person understand that. On the softer side, I think this is particular to the industry, which is the capital markets that I'm representing. Time is very important, timing of information, stock markets open on time, close on time, IPOs happen on time. Person has to be time sensitive. So we look for those traits in the interview process and of course the second thing is very high adaptability. capital markets. There is continuous change. There is nothing constant in the capital markets. So, are you settled when there is change? Can you move around, change around, adapt? That becomes critical. So we look at the history of the individual as the person changed. For example, people taking AI courses while they are doing some other specializations, or inter-specialization of courses. Person is doing HR and is taking finance also. That shows the person's inbuilt ability to do multiple things together. The future is like that, as you rightly said, what roles will be in the future we don't know really, and the person should be able to move around.
Yeah. So if I you'd ask for what's one skill we look for. Maybe I'll make it as 3 skills. A lot of the foundational aspects around problem solving, cultural fit, leadership, being able to work in teams, a lot of those still continue to stay. It's almost like when Test cricket becomes T20, many of those foundational principles still continue to stay there. But the way I think about it is there are 3 areas where increasingly, both as I see it as well as we are in the consulting business, so what I see with clients, 3 places where there's a fundamental difference. Number 1 is the need for talent to take a techno-commercial design thinking. You cannot just say, I'm a business person, so-and-so is a technology person, so-and-so is a design person, this person's the coding person, this person's the core tech person. It's like, as opposed to the T principle which we all grew up, which is have a broader view and have a deep skill, I think of it as the PI principle, which is you should have an overarching view, but you should have a techno-commercial lens towards pretty much everything that you can work towards. That I think is point number 1. The second component that I think of is he made a very good point about technology, commoditizing a lot of the skill. Another piece which has got significantly commoditized is your ability to get a lot of detailed information synthesized. We all grew up thinking about 80-20 principle. I've heard phrases in my own professor saying, don't boil the ocean, take an 80-20 lens, which is important. But you can actually boil the ocean now. That's the power of AI. So the question, therefore, which means if you are freeing up a lot of capacity of an analyst's time, where the analyst would have spent hours and hours boiling the information, it frees up capacity for the person to both understand the depth of the information, but also take a step back and look at the bigger picture, what they call as the balcony and the bazaar, if I may put it that way. The third piece, if I may also, and I grew up playing a lot of cricket and I was an opening batsman, my coach used to say, top hand tight, bottom hand loose, is how we were all taught to hold the bat. And as people move towards middle management, as people move towards taking on CXO roles, that becomes an important thing. There is so much uncertainty. There's one part of you which has to hold things firm on how it's going, but there has to be another part of yours which has to be very flexible in order to deflect the bat depending on how the ball comes through and how the transformation comes through. So that ability to be able to both be firm yet be very flexible to move around is a skill which I look for in people.